this week's episode of Automated, our weekly podcast where we talk about robots, how great they are, how terrible they are, and generally we joke around a little bit. Sitting across from me is a man wearing a recursive t-shirt, which I will not fall into for the third time. I, of course, am your host, Stefan Seltz-Oxmacher, CEO and co-founder here at Polymath Robotics. And gentleman with the recursive t-shirt, who are you?
Yeah, I'm starting to think that your use of the term weekly is about the fact that the podcast is weak, rather than that it's a weekly podcast.
Hey, we recently added the phrase, a robotics podcast, to our Spotify title. Now we're in the top 10 robotics podcasts.
I know. It's like being the top 10 slowest runners.
So, dear listener, if this is the first time you're listening, quickly turn off your car and listen to every podcast in order, reverse, and ideally the whole recording in reverse, so we can get that sweet stats up.
Yeah,
stats page
if
up.
you do listen to every recording in reverse, it does send a secret message.
Yeah.
So go for it.
Yeah, but only, it gives you the keys to Ilya's bank account.
Good luck.
So this, of course, is Automated. We do this podcast in two sections. First, we play a game to make up a robot using a random piece of technology and a random market to simulate what it's like to start a company. And then we talk about some broader, interesting subject in robotics. What do you want to talk about today?
I think today we're going to talk about underwater robots because we haven't talked about it yet.
Yes, and we realized we hadn't. And Ilya was very unsurprised to learn that I have long wanted humans to live on the seafloor. I think Sea Lab 2021, or if you're really cool, the video game that I forgot the name of, Submarine Titans, which was a real-time strategy game on a flooded-out Earth circa 2000.
That does sound pretty cool.
All right. Ilya got rid of my crappy flashcards where I could cheat, and now instead it's a generator that is not great. Yeah. It just proposed applying GPS to autonomous driving. What a laugh. This one doesn't even make sense in terms of order. I think someone messed this up. But let's say, well, we've already done deep learning. So the market will be sanitation and cleaning.
Okay.
And let's use reinforcement learning.
Okay.
But it can't be a real business.
Okay.
Yep.
So reinforcement learning robots.
To make things clean.
To make things clean.
Yeah.
So I think you're definitely going to have, first question, supervised or unsupervised learning?
Unsupervised is now called AI. Let's say
AI.
AI for cleaning.
We're always back.
So I'm not a cleaning person. I'm not a clean person. I don't like cleaning. Yeah, I know. And part of what I struggle with is, especially when you're cleaning like glasses, it's hard to know if the thing's actually clean or not. Like I often will use too much soap and then I'm like pouring the whole thing out 10 times in a row.
I feel we should build a robot to wash dishes. What do you think? It could be a little box that has a rack that comes out that you put the dishes in.
I'm more thinking, let's say you have something really large that you need to hose down and you need to put soap on or some sort of cleaning agent and then you need to hose it down again.
Like a car wash. An automated car wash.
But something bigger and external. Not like a car goes through it, like something that cleans a building.
Okay.
But using AI to know when clean is clean enough.
I don't know if you need AI for this.
I don't know. People have different opinions of what clean enough is.
If I could pull us in a different direction. There's that startup that we talked to that's doing like a robot that goes into hotel rooms to clean them autonomously.
Clean the bathroom.
Yeah. That's a challenge.
Yeah, but that's close to a real business. Yeah.
All right.
I might have come to it by playing this game, but actually it could be interesting. And closer to a real business, but interesting. AI for prioritization of cleaning.
Okay, go on.
I have a off-white couch. I have a toddler. I have a dog. If my house is a mess, it is possible that a mess means the baby toys are out or the dog toys are out. However, if there's like wine spilled on the couch, we need to hop to. We need to quickly clean up the wine stain, putting back every toddler toy while my son is taking the toys out. Negative value, in fact.
Yeah.
But quickly getting cleaning agents on site when certain things have happened starts being interesting.
Okay, so you want a camera that watches your room and figures out if there's a mess.
Watches every room in my house, and it needs to be mounted to a mobile robot.
Camera watches first.
Okay.
Then dispatches a mobile robot.
A specialty mobile robot based on what type of stain.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it could be used in a home. It could be used in an office. A wide variety of different things.
It's a little fleet of robots.
Yeah.
You seen The Fifth Element?
Yeah.
Do you remember the little specialized robots that pop out from under the desk?
Yes. One robot has a little brush, the other robot has a little receptacle.
Dustpan and
Yep.
whatever.
And I think it basically is using AI to trigger a series of behavior, of not necessarily AI-driven behaviors to clean things up.
Okay. And how would you figure out the data set? Actually, the data set wouldn't be too bad because if you just watch what people react to quickly,
Yep.
you could confer
That's
importance.
interesting. But that might be better as supervised.
No, it's unsupervised, right? There's no human telling you. It's you watch what people are doing. You figure out when people jump up suddenly because they've spilled wine, like
or because someone rang the doorbell and now a dog is barking, going to wake up the baby.
Yeah, so dispatch the robot to smack the dog. Right? Like, they watched you smacking the dog.
Then it smacks the dog.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is a pitch that I've heard from.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be an unintentional tell, like all those right-leaning politicians who keep mentioning about inappropriate ads that they get.
Yeah.
It'll be like, oh, why does my robot smack my dog? Like, I wonder why.
All right, so we basically have a series of AI cameras that watch everything in your house.
Yep.
And if you jump up, it figures out which robots to dispatch.
Or you should just look agitated.
Okay. So also you're having a debate with your significant other.
Robots come out.
Finish the debate.
Saran wrap.
Like the Fifth Element.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're just recreating the Fifth Element.
Yeah.
There's no part of that society that looks bad to live in. It's just excellent.
I mean, and now we do live in a timeline where someone can decide to fire 1 million taxi drivers at a time.
Yes.
So like the Fifth Element is now. Right. So the robots, like who cares? Roomba, how hard can that be?
Who's the current leader of Uber? I'm trying to...
Dara...
Whoever it is, their name is not...
Travis Kalanick.
No. Was it Zorg?
Yeah.
The name is not Zorg?
So Dara from Uber, Dara is how it's pronounced. If you've been listening to every episode, which I assume you have, please change your name to Zorg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Requirement.
Yeah. So the robots actually become somewhat trivial in this. It starts being the AI model for figuring out what cleaning process needs to be triggered. And whether it's a put the toys away, whether it's a spray a squeegee bottle, whether it's a multi-step squeegee bottle, paper towel, squeegee bottle, paper towel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess what common cleaning tasks are probably outside of the realm of what easy manipulation could do?
All of them. Currently, honest answer, everything except vacuuming and mopping, like basic mopping, is pretty hard.
Yeah.
There's some work right now going on picking up, like we saw in person, some work going on in picking up clutter, but there's a lot of supervised training that's going on there.
And differentiating clutter and trash is
surprisingly hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even
a lot of my son's precious toys look a lot like trash.
Yeah. It's not only that. Again, going back to Amazon days, even assuming a perfect sensor set, which no robot has, but assume a perfect sensor set and you can perfectly segment out the floor.
Yeah.
You then get into a problem of my laptop is thin, and it's so thin that I now leave it on the ground beside my couch very often. And the robot should not drive over a laptop. That's just not a good idea.
Yeah. Bad design.
But it's 2 centimeters tall. And so if you tell it don't drive over 2 centimeter tall things, it's not going to go over your carpet, which it should. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to train you what a carpet versus what a laptop is. And then you find on Amazon miniature carpets with a MacBook design on them. And you start to pull your hair out of your head about who would buy a miniature carpet with a MacBook on it. And it just turtles all the way down with those sort of problems.
Yeah. Okay. What about doing things like spraying a wine stain on an off-white couch?
Yeah. One thing you're going to have to think
Not that anyone's ever spilled wine on my off-white couch. Not that anyone and his roommate's girlfriend have ever tried to rearrange the pillows so that their now wife would not see the wine stain until some time had passed.
I was going to say, I feel like, having been to your place, there's pillows that never leave their strategic corners. No, I think actually one of the interesting ones there would be figuring out material type, because you should not use some cleaners on leather, for example. Like, it's just not a good idea.
Yeah, it's funny. There's definitely a couple of teams who have tried to solve this.
Yeah.
And there's probably 1 or 2 of them who have come up with a novel leather cloth detector.
Yeah.
That maybe its leather reflects UV in some interesting way where you can reliably tell that this is leather, this is plastic, this is cloth.
You mentioned an interesting thing. Somewhere that not a lot of effort has been put into, but is starting to change, is actually touch sensitivity for robots.
Yeah.
That's been really low effort for a long time. But a lot of interesting stuff right now is actually using cheap camera sensors to image the inside of a reflective foil that's covered in gel, so that when you press it into something, you get basically an image of that surface to a camera at a microscopic scale.
Yeah.
And that would actually be able to tell a leather grain from a fabric, from a whatever, because it's just an imaging recognition problem at that point.
So it's actually interesting in general. If you had mobile super high magnification lenses and ran computer vision stuff on that.
I think super high magnification, the problem with that is that you have to be a defined distance away from your object to get it in focus. And like doing that quickly is hard. Whereas with touch, you just slam it down and like instantaneously you get an image.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's way faster.
So like even if you had a 100x lens that ranged itself to your couch cushion and said, "Oh, this is fabric."
Yeah, like that's a much harder problem than just touching it and getting a surface imprint. You could do that a lot faster.
Getting that surface imprint from how that gel contours
deforms, and you could do that really quick. And those are they're not cheap yet, but they're getting much cheaper. There's a lot of companies pursuing a very similar application. There's some patent encumbrance in the space, but people are working their way around it.
So in other words, the figuring out which things we want to clean, like actually might be a reasonable task.
Yeah.
For an unsupervised model.
I think it's the setting up cameras and watching people for 6 months for data gathering. That might be objectionable.
No, people love cameras in their homes.
Yeah.
But the actual cleaning tasks are still going to be the hard thing.
The manipulation problem is going to be hard.
So I got a product.
Yeah.
We fill your house with cameras.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Every angle has a camera. Anytime you suddenly move, it triggers an alert.
Table stakes.
And that alert promptly populates a spreadsheet that the maid follows up on.
Excellent. It's a half product. Watching my 4-year-old try to clean up stains, and she's had 4 years to try to do this with a significantly more powerful processor.
Yeah. To be fair, you don't spend a lot of training data on her.
I would disagree. Try to teach her quite a bit.
I don't know. If you haven't spent 7 figures in training data, do you really care about your model?
But I think for the name for the system, since there's a bunch of cameras, that's obviously Big Brother. But the actual cleaning task is going to be Little Sister to try to actually figure out.
I was more thinking with all the cameras, it'd be like Clean Opticon.
Clean Opticon. Oh, yeah. Because, all those extremely democratically elected regimes are often famous for cleanliness.
In some neighborhoods, at least.
Exactly.
That being said, I'm actually really excited to talk about this subject. Especially, it's one that I don't know as well, but it's one I'm incredibly interested in. Underwater robots. So part of my interest comes from, there's this video game, this real-time strategy game that came out in 2000, which means I probably stole it from my older brother when he got tired of it in 2002. That was a real-time strategy game in a flooded-out Earth, where your little submarines that attacked each other could sometimes be on top of each other. And it was somewhat three-dimensional in a stupid top-down RTS way. And since then, I've long thought there's a whole lot of space on Earth that is water. Reasonably to think there's a whole lot of materials on the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. There used to be surface level gold. There's probably surface level gold at the bottom of the sea. Yeah. Underneath some sand that you can blow away with fans. So the idea of, hey, what if we could go mine the ocean? What if we could build settlements? I also love the TV show Sea Lab 2021, which I don't know if you've... Fantastic. It's a comedy show. Of it. Okay. Yeah. Originally based on a real show, it's called Sea Lab 2020. It got canceled after a season or two. Sea Lab 2021 took all the same Hanna-Barbera shots and then made it into a ridiculous, crazy show. Where in one of them, the captain makes it a communist republic and they're nuke DC. It's a great, crazy Adult Swim TV show. But this idea of, hey, there's also that stupid 90s Star Trek show where they're on a submarine traveling around the Earth. The idea that this is the last frontier of the planet. Let's go explore it.
Okay.
And robots seem like a great tool for that. However, outside of these fantasy interests, there's basically no use case for underwater robots. There's military stuff, which is nonlinear business progression. And there's some ideas about mining the bottom of the sea, but usually with arms that go down and maybe they bring some stuff up.
So the most common use case right now, they're called like ROVs.
Yeah.
Is pipelines.
Yeah.
And fiber optic lines right now are very commonly using them.
Yeah, but like the world demand for that's probably 100 robots, 1,000 robots?
Maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000.
And so like 1,000 robots at $10 million a robot is not a very interesting market.
Yeah, no, for sure.
If you control the entire ROV market as a monolith, you would not break the Fortune 500.
What's even more interesting is that the vast majority, I don't know the numbers, but let's call it north of 90%, are entirely remote control, dumb robots.
Yep.
They have no navigation.
Yep.
They have basic...
And they're controlled by a cable on a boat.
A cable that goes right above. Yeah. They have very basic cameras, very basic thrusters, very basic manipulation.
Yep.
Everything is done super slow.
Yep.
Very early days.
Yep.
Part of that is a technical limitation, though. I don't think that's actually a market size problem.
Why?
First and foremost, localizing underwater is extremely hard.
Yeah.
GPS doesn't...
As a diver, it is easy to get lost.
Super easy to get lost. Yeah, super easy to get lost, and that's for a human. For a robot, it's even worse.
Yeah.
GPS doesn't penetrate more than a few meters of water, so you don't have localization data.
And I should say, for people who haven't scuba dived, water is nuts. So you essentially, that thing that you do where you pop your ears on an airplane is equalizing the pressure between your body and your surface, the surrounding surface.
Yeah.
Typically, if you go high flight, you're flying probably at 2 to 4 miles, maybe 5. You might pop your ears once. Every 10 meters of water has an entire atmosphere worth of pressure.
I think it's worse than that. I think the pressure doubles. I think actually even every meter or something like that. It's very fast.
Which means it's not quite every meter, because I had remembered that for a while and that was not correct.
But it's very fast.
But essentially when you're scuba diving, you're popping your ears every couple meters of descent or ascent.
Yeah.
And that is because the increased water above you, or decreased water if you're going up a couple meters, is as heavy as the entire Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
If you shoot a gun into a pool, the bullets are harmless after 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah.
Water is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Which makes radio communications kind of garbage.
Unusable. I mean, the reason the ROVs drag a cable behind them, not because they want to, it's because they have no choice.
Yeah.
Other than extremely long-range radio or low-frequency radio, which you can't transmit video over, just bandwidth-wise. You can't really
even if
get
you're
much.
making like whale sound.
Yeah, you can make a whale sound.
Like, let's say you're like, screw all marine life.
Yeah.
Let's just do this destructive.
Power, like a submarine sonar.
Yeah.
Like a submarine sonar, very powerful, but it can only transmit few kilobytes a second maximum.
Yeah.
You're not going to get video over that. You're not going to get any sort of
telemetry. There are tricks where you could reconstruct partial scenes using AI, but with that little data, probably not.
You're mostly hallucinating at that point. Right? Yeah. So data rates are a problem. It's funny because a lot of the military type ROVs, if they do have to report back, they're either surfacing and satellite communicating, or they'll deploy a buoy that will do the same thing and they'll keep going. And submarines will do that too. Yeah. But transmitting data through water is very, very difficult. Localizing in water is very difficult.
To be fair, a lot of the water looks like nothing.
Right.
If you're not at a relatively high reef,
and
by relatively high reef, no greater than 30 meters or about 100 feet deep, you're seeing nothing.
Yeah.
And like I've tried to dive times where like your visual range of what you can see at surface level is like 3 meters.
Yeah.
So if you're floating in that, there's nothing to see.
Yeah. And so you have no idea where you are. And so you can only really localize against the ground, which means you have to have a high definition map of the ground to actually localize. But how do you get that if you can't get it in the first place? So it's a whole slam problem. You can maybe solve this with triangulation with sonars and that kind of stuff. There's ways to do that kind of stuff, but that's fairly low precision. It won't give you orientation data that's particularly good. So, the main problem also is just navigation itself is difficult because the water will have currents. And so you think you're going straight down, but you're actually going straight down and a meter a second to the right or left or whatever.
And like currents are also
very fast. Yeah. So you can easily...
There are dives that people do where they do the dive holding onto a rope and they're just descending, holding onto the rope the whole time because the current is so much that they will end up hundreds of feet, if not miles, away from where they intend to be without holding the rope that's tied to an anchor.
Yeah. So all of this makes it difficult on top of just the business case.
Yeah.
Part. But yeah, the other place that they use ROVs is for shipwrecks and for data collection, that kind of stuff. That's pretty interesting too. But again, there's really strong technological limitations. The funny one that I didn't realize till recently is if you're doing...
even like on surface, on a land vehicle on surface, dealing with that tethered cable is non-trivial. Like we're looking at a number of different implementations right now where we'd be forced to be tied to a cable for one reason or another. Yeah. And minding that is significant.
It's tough, yeah.
And let alone that's a cable that like defaults to falling down on the ground.
ROVs get tangled in cables and abandoned all the time.
Yeah.
All the time underwater. Sometimes there's no option. You've tried to free it for the last 8 hours straight, and your ship's running out of fuel, your mothership, and you have to go back to port.
Yeah.
That's it. You're cutting the line.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a real challenge. But the interesting one I learned recently is if you're doing actual serious deep diving, below a certain point, you cannot maintain buoyancy no matter how hard you try, because the density of any gas you try to replace the water with, like air, it will get crushed so much that you still don't have positive buoyancy.
Yeah.
At that point, energy usage becomes a huge deal where you're having to expend a lot of energy just to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And so that limits your battery power. So moving water is very energy intensive.
You kind of go from being in 0G to being in
negative buoyancy.
Yeah, a G. Negative.
Not a G. No, like I'd call it like
positive
I
G.
don't know.
Positive gravity.
No, I'd say like a tenth of a G. Like they're low gravity equivalent.
Yeah.
But the problem is you have to move water. Yeah. And so that's very energy intensive. It's very dense.
What if, like any of my favorite things about building bases at the bottom of the ocean, you had a fixed area that you cared about? Let's say the whole facility is at a couple 100 meters to 200 meters, and it's in the same place. It is fixed to bedrock, and you care about the same area around said bedrock. How would you go about it then?
So
let's take this from a problem of the whole ocean, and turn it into a problem of 100 acres.
This specific thing, you'd probably set up a buoy with a line that goes to the ground.
Yep,
that's anchored.
Yep,
and you always ascend and descend using that.
Well, but the base is on the seafloor.
Is already there. Okay, you're not worried how that got there.
That's been solved.
Magically placed there.
Massive government funding.
Okay,
it's such a shame that the kids can't have pre-K.
Yeah.
But hey, now we got a 200-person base.
Underwater base.
250 meters underwater.
Yeah. So at that point, your main problems after that, assuming you have some ability to have already mapped the terrain, is energy and just corrosive nature of the ocean.
Nuclear power.
Yeah. And corrosive nature of the ocean.
Nature of the ocean.
It's just salt water, right? So any material you're putting out there starts getting corroded, starts getting ion replaced very quickly. Right, so any of your more reactive elements are going to get glommed on by dissolved, whatever, you name it, magnesium, calcium, whatever. Right, so you get aggregates on the bottom of your materials or on the whole surface of the material.
Yep.
What else? One benefit here is that brushless motors can actually work reasonably well. I think I'd mentioned this before.
Yeah.
But a brushless motor, it's already, all the electricity running through a motor is already contained in an enameled wire.
Yeah.
And so you can actually expose that to salt water and it's relatively okay because enamel's non-reactive.
So all your motors can be like out in the elements.
Out in the elements, yeah. And there's no air. Because again, some part of your electronics will have to be waterproofed.
Yeah.
And whatever that is will have some amount of air in it. Mm-hmm. And then you again have to fight with compression.
But if you're at a stable depth, you can design for that compression.
Yes. I mean, if you build the robot, if you assemble the robot in your magic base, then you're already at that pressure. And so your pressurization problem is a lot lower.
Yeah.
If you can maintain the equivalent 100 atmosphere pressure or whatever it is. Yeah. That's not so bad. Of course, the thing will explode if it ever surfaces.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to surface. It's robotic mining equipment at 250 meters underwater.
Yeah.
There's certainly like a plateau of space that is mostly bedrock at a consistent depth somewhere in the ocean. Yeah.
I think with all of that, it's still going to be more economically viable to mine gold as we do currently. Where it's 1 ounce per ton or whatever the number is. Like 1 ounce per ton will look like a steal compared to whatever you spend on this magic base.
I don't know. My suspicion is I've had a couple of chats with someone who is looking at mining the bottom of the ocean, And like, there is significant value of just like modules of material that have some gold in it, let alone if you found a vein of gold.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that.
Like I'm
So
not
they're
a geologist, but I assume that like,
Yeah.
there are similar surface veins of gold on the seafloor
Yeah.
as have long since been depleted on the surface
Sure. I think the
or on
little,
the land.
the
I
little
should say.
nodules thing. So one thing is the way that these companies are planning to do that is basically a giant vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Which is super destructive. It's
What
horribly destructive.
What did the ocean ever do for us?
Yeah.
We're on team land.
It's awful. so one of the main things is that they basically use a giant water pump.
Yeah.
And they're sucking in the nodules, but they're also sucking in a bunch of silt.
Yeah, silt's fine.
And then
it's just dirt.
To maintain the energy efficiency, they dump it back halfway up to the surface.
Terrific.
So you're getting this giant silt plume.
Yep.
That will completely cloud the entire ocean for miles around.
That'll be great for marine plants. They'll get a fresh silt on top. They don't need sunlight.
Suspect not. Why? There's no sunlight down there anyway. So sunlight's not.
Is
the
that
problem.
stuff happening in the Hadal zone, or is it? I assumed it was a lot of it was higher up than the Hadal zone.
No, it's deep. It's deep enough that the amount of sunlight you're getting is negligible. There's probably some.
Yeah,
but it's very small. But yes, if this was an idealized robot that came and hand-picked, artisanally selected nodules,
which I've seen companies
into a nice basket,
yeah,
fine. But that's not what they're building.
I've seen a company that wants to do that.
That company is not going to succeed. It's not viable.
Super complicated robot arm operating at depth.
Yeah, exactly. At a speed and scale that you're not going to make your money back. Yeah. I think underwater robots, it makes sense.
Well, actually, what would be hard about building my underwater mining base is the surveying alone defines the gold.
So on the nodule side of things, there's these mineralized nodules. They are actually localized in a specific area. The most rich deposits we know of are in a very specific geographic area with a bunch of companies and countries fighting for claim on that right now. It's an interesting geopolitical, minor turf war going on.
I know that a number of countries have explicitly banned it from their waters, but maybe they're just ones without a lot of waters.
Hawaii can ban it from their waters. Yeah. That's great.
Idaho.
Yeah.
Idaho has said no deep sea mining.
Good job,
in the state.
Idaho. I appreciate it. I think
Switzerland's had the same policy. No deep sea mining in Swiss international waters.
Who else? Mongolia.
Yeah. Liechtenstein is a little more loosey-goosey, though. It's a disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen their book on maritime regulations?
No.
You should.
So what advancements have you seen coming down the pipe for underwater robots in the near term?
Honestly, I think this isn't recent, but I think a lot of the brushless thrusters have made a big difference for cheaper ROVs, for smaller stuff. I think we're still stuck in the remote operated. Nobody's really made a serious attempt at autonomy. I've seen some early university papers, master's thesis or PhD thesis on underwater localization using stitching of images. Yeah. Where you have an image database, you go down and you photo recognize where you are, and they're borrowing data from the aerial survey. Yeah. Great application. There's challenges with water, visibility, distance, and that kind of stuff.
Which can change rapidly on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. But there's no kind of single breakthrough I can point to that I've seen recently. Something that I did see, I think the CES before last, was something that I've always wanted to build, actually, was a search and rescue life vest that comes to you if you fall overboard. So that's an underwater robot, but it's not deep underwater. Yeah. But it sounds silly, but it actually makes sense, is that if you fall overboard, the chance of somebody getting a life vest to you or like one of those life-saving rings is like virtually zero. Like the success rate on those throws is so low that it's basically not even worth the attempt.
Really?
Yeah. It's unless you're in a pond.
Yeah.
If you're actually out in the ocean, you're gone immediately. You fall overboard, your chance of recovery is almost zero. Yeah. And so the reason they want to do this is that you at least have some chance because the thing's going to hunt you. It's going to go in the water and it's going to chase you down.
So ROVs that hunt people.
Yes. And then they inflate into a life vest or a raft or whatever. Yeah. Exactly. And
that actually makes sense. What's the triggering mechanism? There's a splash nearby. So if you throw a cooler off the side of a cruise ship, you're life-saving.
It's the wristbands. If they don't detect the wristband anymore on the ship, or I don't know, I forget the details, but some automated electronic way to figure
I like the idea of robots that hunt people.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we'll call it for today.
On that claim for Terminator. Yeah. Stefan's threatening me with a box cutter, so I guess it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah. Elliot, what are we talking about next week?
We've been 2 weeks in a row, so probably don't expect an episode next week. Given
Well, you're also taking 2 days off.
I know.
It's terrible. It's very inconvenient for me.
Poor life choice. But yeah, we'll figure out what happens next week.
And thanks so much for joining us this week. We'll talk to you all soon.
See you next time.